Stewardship in Abuja at the opening of the maiden edition of the Nigerian Media Water Week, themed Water is Life.
There will be a purposeful collaboration in all our activities towards achieving access to potable water, sanitation and hygiene for all Nigerians, and a renewed commitment towards an open defecation-free nation by 2025.
The state government collects money from the individual households, yet they give nothing to the people who provide them with the bulk water. So this should stop.
And Nigerians and people of the Southwest in particular will soon breathe a sigh of relief as President Buhari has approved special intervention funds for the reconstruction and expansion of roads across the region. Chairman, Senate Committee on Works, Senator Kabiru Gaya, gave the assurance while mandating the contractors handling Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to speed up work on the project.
I think they said, okay, they have certified about 123 billion, but they've only approved 59 billion. That 59 billion hasn't even been paid.
The budget is in trillions, but the government is trying to continue paying accordingly. We have 34,000 kilometers of road we are working on.
Meanwhile, the Senate has adjourned plenary for 1 week to enable its committees conclude oversight functions. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onko reports that the National Assembly had previously adjourned plenary for 2 weeks for the same purpose.
I want to move that since we have not formed quorum, we may therefore adjourn. But in doing so, I want to also say that the Senate, why it is empty today is because various committees are carrying out oversight duties.
I'm going to put the questions. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
And House of Representatives has expressed concern over reactions peddled in the media over its findings on allegations of violation of public trust against management of National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, on the procurement and distribution of relief materials to victims of flood and insurgency in 2017. Chairman of the House Committee on Emergency and Disaster Preparedness, Representative Ali Issa, said the report was based on submissions of stakeholders during public hearings on the matter.
Publications, some are not even in line with the report submitted, while some are attacking my personality, attacking the members of the committee and the House of Representatives.
In the meantime, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has expressed its willingness to continue to support disaster-related interventions by NEMA, which it described as holistic. Acting Deputy Mission Director of the agency, Charles Egu, stated this in Abuja during the training of officers from the emergency operations centers across the country.
NEMA has significantly improved its capability to coordinate emergency response.
The commitment this administration has in quick response to disasters made them to quickly accept our proposal and fund this training.
And that ends the news for now, but you can expect more news from us. That will be at 10. For now, Kingsley and Kieran will be back after the break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
reorganized, trained, and fully equipped. We are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. It's you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils! Strepsils! Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Team huddle.
But we lost.
Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual.
For the three put.
You're welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah.
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand. We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have.
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice.
Are you sorry?
That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Momo to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA network service. Now time for business. Central Bank of Nigeria injects another $210 million into the forex market. Let's join Kunle Adeye for details.
The Central Bank of Nigeria's latest intervention saw the Apex Bank inject the sum of $210 million in the interbank market. Wholesale segment of the market received $100 million, while the small and medium enterprises and indivisible segments got $55 million each. The bank assured that it will continue to sustain liquidity in the forex market. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation (NDIC) says it has saved 949.6 billion naira depositors' fund in the failed Sky Bank. Managing Director of the corporation, Alhaji Umaru Ibrahim, disclosed this at a financial workshop for journalists in Benin by the corporation. He said that the feat was achieved through the adoption of a bridge bank option, adding that the corporation also saved over 6,000 jobs in 277 branches of the failed bank. In another development, the federal government says it will henceforth improve on the financing of the healthcare system. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who stated this while interacting with a cross-section of the Nigerian community in South Africa, also revealed that this will be achieved through the strengthening of the National Health Insurance Scheme.
We are
very concerned about ramping up our own healthcare financing. And that's why one of the chief issues that we're dealing with now is the whole issue of the NHIS, the National Health Insurance, ensuring that we're able to make health insurance compulsory, and government being able to make the payments for those who cannot afford to make those payments.
And next is the graphic representation of Tuesday's trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much, Kunle, there for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atebi, is here. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kirian. Yeah. Good morning, Kinsley, and good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, good to see you. Kirian, let's begin with you.
All right, let's turn to the This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper, above the nameplate, DMO, federal government to auction a 115 billion bond on Wednesday. The rider that says market activity declined in 2017. DMO is actually the Debt Management Office. Now, below that, communications expert kick as PDP, APC patronize foreign firms. Details you can find on page 10 of This Day newspaper. And now the main headline, Oshomale says Amosu Okorocha are loyal party men will support APC candidates, with a rider that says poor communication cause of negative perception of Buhari's government. And then below that again, after moving just towards the photograph, Dasuki protests, refuses to attend trial, asks federal government to obey court orders. That's a rider to that headline. And at the foot of This Day newspaper, crude oil price slumps to one-year low. Page 49 has details of that story. By the way, you can get Dasuki protest story on page 48 of This Day newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at the Daily Sun, front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. There's an earpiece beside the nameplate, and it says, with a kicker, Senate, Saraki must go. And that's according to Oshomole, who is APC chairman. And says Senate President's leadership unacceptable. Details of that story can be found on page 8. The lead story has a kicker, new minimum wage controversy. Again, Labour draws battle line. Gives federal government December deadline on payment of 30,000 naira salary and issues warning strike notice. That story is on page 38, according to the Daily Sun. Now, the photograph on the front page of the paper there shows some children at the internally displaced persons camp having a meal in Jos. That was in Plateau State yesterday. Now, plan to cut MTN fine causes ripples in Senate. That's page 37. And we are committed to fight against Boko Haram, President Buhari. And Dasuki refuses to appear in court. Complaints of federal government's disobedience to judges' orders. That's page 4. And why I picked fellow Muslim as running mate. That's Governor Rufai of Kaduna. And by the way, Bayo, let me just take also the stories from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story is also on Dasuki, and it says Dasuki writes court, vows not to submit to further trial. He can be tried in absentia. That's according to the prosecution. Details of the story can be found on the front page with a jump to page 5. And below the nameplate of the paper, you have two headlines there. One of the headlines says Sokoto Deputy Governor resigns. That's on page 5. The details on page 5 are indicating that there's no full confirmation yet whether or not the deputy governor has resigned. Labour issues fresh ultimatum over 30,000 naira minimum wage. That's page 3. And then the photograph on the front page of the Daily Trust says members of the Civil Joint Task Force, I believe that should be Civilian Joint Task Force, recruited by the Zamfara state government. This was during their screening and inauguration by the Emir of Zurmi in Zurmi, Zamfara state yesterday. I see them there with some of them with their Dane guns as part of the Joint Task Force to help tackle the insecurity situation in Zamfara.
The kind of guns they are carrying there, can it compete with the type of the bandits?
Effective at close range, obviously. Effective at close range. These are mostly they look mostly like hunters, you know. All right, senators failed to form quorum, go on break for oversight. That's page 3. And EFCC intercepts 211 million naira gold at Lagos Airport. And airline and federal government differ over multiple routes for foreign carriers.
Well, let's start with the observation made that communication experts are keen that lead political parties are engaging foreign experts as regards their communication. We need to learn from immediate past. If you remember 2015, there were campaigns that were designed, were particularly out of context because communication is cultural. You bring imperatives that are alien to our culture and you bring it here and you see serious outrage. And not only that, if you go critically into the guidelines for advertising in Nigeria, there is a section of it that insists that you have to use some of the proponents and the models you have to use have to be indigenous. So there is a critical element of indigenization in advertising. And this alarm is raised because very soon, by November 16th or thereabout, INEC's timetable for political campaign will be raised and it will raise a critical challenge.
But sorry, Bayo, the communication giants are complaining that the parties are patronizing foreigners. But these communication giants are not patronizing the nation's communication satellite. So where are they getting their signals from? Is it not foreign satellites? So why are they not patronizing? That's another aspect of this. Because when you patronize Nigerian communication satellite, the possibility of the nation launching more satellites in the orbit that will make the nation a satellite-based economy is there.
Well, I think the issue is more of public relations.
Yes.
Or like marketing rather than the use of satellite. Yes, you can utilize satellite in the process of the communication, but the key issue, I know, Kieran, you've always raised this point about the lack of patronage for local satellites, but this has to do more with political communication and an aspect of it arising from public relations. That's what Bayo was talking about. That if you need to...
They're powered extensively by satellite.
No,
whenever that is the major source of this communication, your telephone, banking transactions, and what have you.
You don't need the satellite to put an advert in a newspaper. You don't, I believe.
Yes. But is there any foreign newspaper operating in Nigeria? I beg to understand. You know, is there any foreign newspaper operating in Nigeria where they're patronizing? We're talking about communication that has to do with electronic gadgets.
No, what this is talking about is engaging foreign communication experts to operate within this environment. Where particularly campaign is on and you have advertisement that will have to be culturally sensitive. But the issue you have raised about satellite, yes, patronage is very necessary for Nigeria-owned satellite, but the patronage depends upon where the footprint is, the services that is offered, and the services that those who want to buy the services require. You know, it's purely a commercial endeavor.
Over 40 transponders in several bands that can engage any communication.
I think you are. Well, let's not.
But go ahead.
No. Let's not conflict. Let's not conflict the issues. Using communication gadgets or using communication satellites, it's not the issue there. The issue there has to do with political persuasion. political persuasion, which brings in, it has something to do with satellites.
Instruments and tools to do that. You don't just communicate, without applying those instruments.
Sorry, Bayo. Let our viewers not, get the impression that the story that Kieran, of course, you read that story, is talking about. This has to do with public relations. It also has to do with advertising. I asked the question now, do you need a communication satellite to place an advert in the paper?
I think the viewers must have had the two sides. Yeah. Let's leave them to judge. Now we can move on.
Nigeria operating newspapers in this country?
Let's move on. The other issue that has been raised, the other issue that has been raised is the development in Kaduna State. Development in Kaduna State about the choice of a deputy governor. It has become very critical because the element of religion has been played off very critically. And in our political terrain, you cannot but be conscious of religion, ethnicity. And most often than not, when these are raised, the issues of competencies are ignored. Of currency is the issue in Kaduna State. Kaduna State is of a peculiar nature in the sense that before even the creation of the current Kaduna State, the balance between northern Kaduna, which then included the present Katsina State, and the southern Kaduna, which is now the current Kaduna State, had always been a factor that has predominated the political arguments. And currently, the lady that has been selected has been deemed to be very competent. And passing through the crucible, she passed through the crucible of 40 persons that were listed, and eventually she got selected. However, politicians must be very sensitive about the nuances within their political environment, because you can't throw and ignore such things. There are those who are citing that a similar thing has happened in Ondo State, where you have a Christian governor and deputy, and in Ekiti State, but heavens have not fallen. But our politics have now grown to the extent that our politicians will always go back to exploit ethnic and religious sentiments, and it causes disability. It destabilizes our political stability.
But we need to grow. We need to grow. There's no timeline on when a nation grows politically or democratically. We need to grow, and they take some decisions that are not in consonance with all those religious biases or something.
There are nuances that we unfortunately have to take into consideration in the meantime. Meanwhile, there is respite now. Concerns about tremors that happened twice in September and once in November. Now, the National Geological Survey has established 4 seismological centers at 4 strategic locations within the FCT. One is at the Nasarawa City University in Kefi. A second one is at the University of Abuja, Gwagwalada. A third one is at the Versatile University at Buhari. And the coordinating command and control center is at the National Geological Survey Agency at Utako. And so the DG of that agency says that there are others too for the 6th geopolitical zone. But the Minister of State for Mines and Steel says that citizens of Abuja can now sleep with their eyes closed because they have equipment to monitor the seismological undercurrents.
That we can sleep with our eyes closed.
Close, yes.
Because of the monitoring equipment that has been established. Well, it is good, actually, because that's the much they could do. I mean, to monitor, yes. Assurances that they could do. But the cost of the seismic activities and the extent it has gone underground needs to be known. For us to know, if it persists, as it has happened over time now, what should be our preparation like?
Yes. So identifications have been made. The equipment will now be able to monitor and predict in appropriate time any disquiet within the subsurface. And there's the story that Kingsley read about Deputy Governor of Sokoto State having resigned. Yes, Alhaji Ahmed Aliu of Sokoto State has resigned as Deputy Governor. And interestingly, the governor said to have accepted the resignation. He is to contest against the governor in the 2019 election. However, the Sokoto State House of Assembly, that is supposed to be the first point of domicile of the Deputy Governor's resignation, has not indicated that it has received the resignation. But the governor has accepted the resignation.
Okay, Kinsley, you still have a...
No, I'm
okay, let's go to the editorial now. Editorial taken from the Punch newspaper. ASU strike demands urgent attention. Academic activities have been ruptured again in the country's universities since last week as the Academic Staff Union of Universities resumed its strike over epileptic funding. The ASU president, Biodu Oguyemi, said the result to strike was based on the realization that the government was trifling with the union. The effect of the action, no doubt, will be telling on the students. But all the stakeholders should appreciate the union's struggle as one for the common good of Nigeria. Since the 1990s, the drive for improved funding of universities has been an inexorable part of their existence. The latest unease is rooted in the federal government's infidelity to the 2009 agreement, which it entered into with the union. Bio.
Well, just one quick one. Today is World Diabetes Day, and it's very important because diabetes is a disease that has no cure. And many of our Nigerians are fooled by some who propagate drugs they call one single drug that cures all, including diabetes. They call it buboniche, or in this part of the country, there's one drug that they call Baba Aisha's drug. He holds one drug and says it cures every ailment, including diabetes. And the National Diabetic Association is warning that there are about 415 million people suffering from diabetes around the world. And diabetes has no cure, but it can be effectively managed with drugs. So there's need to raise this alarm so that people don't get talking. Now, talking about the ASU strike, you recall that ASU strike commenced last week, and it was a new renewal of a suspended strike following the failure, according to ASU, about this agreement. And this agreement they are fighting against had been reached in 2009, and it has passed through the hands of successive governments. As far back as the year 2013, they were paid a sum of about 220, it was negotiated to about 220 billion for annual funding. They were paid about 23 billion, but it was not enough. In this administration inherited the same thing, and it led to being paid 20 billion. ASU is saying there is a balance of 1.08 billion that needs to be paid. Everybody has sympathy with government because government is a continuum. You reach an agreement in 2009, all subsequent government must live up to the bidding of that agreement because it is government that is a continuum. However, the frustration is that ASU demands has to be balanced along with the necessities of other demands for government expenditure. While government say resources are scarce, there are currently 91 public universities, 43 of them federal. But day in, day out, you will hear members of the National Assembly calling for one college of education, one polytechnic to be converted further into universities. State universities being called upon to be taken over by federal universities. But we keep on increasing and demanding for universities. And the challenges of making those ones that are available now properly funded, giving proper academic grounding so that we can rate among the best universities in the world, those ones are very, very much lacking. So there is need on both sides for ASU and also government, and also particularly our legislators that are always calling for the establishment of more universities. There is a balancing act to have our universities effective and relevant.
All right, Bayo Tebe, that's the most that we can take. We'd like to thank you for being around. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll go ahead with our discussions.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Who am I? I'm a caregiver, a slayer, a boss lady, a foodie. I am the chief quality inspector and chief organizer. And when I'm cooking with my Maggie Star, I become a kitchen grand master.
Every day, you choose to make the difference. That's why you choose Maggie Star, made from natural soya beans and the other carefully selected ingredients to help you cook the difference.
I am the chief enjoyment officer, and I'm the magnet that brings my family together. Need I say more? But best of all, I love what I do.
With Maggie, cook the difference.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1, a delicious combination of rich cocoa and wholesome goodness of milk. Just add hot water to get an instant chocolatey treat. Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1. Just add hot water.
A reminder that the first leg of our conversation this morning is on the Ogoni cleanup. And to kickstart, let's take this background report put together by Aisha Ubali.
Environmental challenges such as erosion, desertification, land degradation, among others, have been a problem in many parts of the country. But the one that has persisted over the years is that of Ogoniland and the Niger Delta region, where pollution as a result of oil spill has caused a lot of hardship for the people. The Ogoni cleanup has been a major challenge for government, looking at the cost implication and terrain of the region, even though attempts by previous government to address the issue but could not make any headway. But determined to change the narrative, the Buhari administration in June 2016 began the implementation of the UNEP 2011 report with the flag-off of the Ogoni cleanup. So far, the federal government has raised $177 million for the cleanup, as well as mobilization and engagement of technical and foreign experts to look at the environmental challenges affecting the region. Government is engaging more than 100 companies who have also passed the pre-qualification exercise. Observers believe that government this time around is making frantic efforts to ensure that all stakeholders involved work in synergy to achieve their targets. How far has the Ogoni cleanup gone 2 years after the flag-off of the project? What is delaying the swift execution of the project? Guests on the program will be shedding more light on these questions shortly.
All right, now joining us on the studio to discuss the update on Ogoni cleanup is Ibrahim Osman Jibril. He's the Honorable Minister of State Environment. Honorable Minister, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria, and thank you.
And also here with us in the studios is Senator Magnus Abe. He represents Rivers Southeast Senatorial District and is also the chairman of the Senate Committee on FEMA. That's the Federal Emergency Roads Management Agency. Senator Abe, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, you're welcome once again. Where are we in terms of the Ogoni cleanup 2 years after the flag-off? I'd like to start with the Honorable Minister of State.
Thank you very much. And we've reached an advanced stage since after the flag-off 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, the background report was talking about contractors that are going to be engaged. Let me just give a little background story. When we started this process in earnest in 2016, we had over 800 contractors unsolicited. We advertised early this year in March, and the number dropped to 400 who expressed interest. After a thorough analysis, 183 passed the pre-qualification. These 183 are the ones that were asked to pick the bid documents to submit their technical and financial details. Before then, we've done desktop scooping and delineation exercise, which is still ongoing. This delineation exercise is to enable us to determine the nature and quantum of contamination that needs to be remediated. For instance, if you don't delineate a particular area, you will not be able to know the quantity of soil that is contaminated and the depth of contamination, whether it affects the groundwater or only the surface water. So delineation is a critical element in this exercise. We've done that, and we'll be able to come out from the 64 sites earmarked by UNEV report, about 21 lots which contractors have bidded for. As I'm talking to you today, it was yesterday that the Ministerial Standards Board sat to consider the 16 lots that are to be awarded. On Friday, next tomorrow, by the grace of God, the Governing Council of Ogoni Trust Fund Project will sit to consider this report, and we hope by next week, contractors will be given their letters of award to start preparation to move to site, hopefully by the end of this November. We have 21 lots, like I said earlier on, that are ready for remediation immediately. Out of these, 16 are within the Ministerial Tenders Board, but there are other 5 that are beyond the capacity of the Ministerial Tender Board. So these are the ones that we've sent to the BPP for no objection to be issued. And I hope by next week, no objection will be issued, and we will go to the Federal Executive Council for approval. So we are right now at the verge of making history because we've gotten to a point, I would say, of no return as far as this project is concerned.
What is the nature of the work and the scope thereof for which the contractors have been engaged at this time?
Well, as you know, whenever there is a pollution, either it is through mechanical failure or whatever, the pipes are ruptured and there is a spill, the hydrocarbon or the crude oil gets into the soil and it has the capacity to destroy virtually everything. The water will be contaminated and the environment generally, everything in the environment, the flora and fauna are completely impacted. You cannot get the fish in the water. The creeks are polluted. The mangroves are also destroyed. So you need to, first of all, if it is on the water surface, you need to clear the free flow oil contents to rid the water from this hydrocarbon. The soil that is contaminated means that you cannot do anything on the soil. You cannot plant. Even if you plant, it does not grow. And if it does, it is contaminated through the food value chain. So you need to clear these hydrocarbons to make the soil free of this hydrocarbon. That's the actual remediation exercise. So the soil will be treated. There are several techniques, and this is highly technical. There are some that use biotechnology to get these hydrocarbons free from the soil. Some of these are done on a smaller scale, day in, day out, when there are spills. For instance, early this year, I commissioned the remediation exercise that was done in Wari refinery through the Ecological Fund project. But this is a massive exercise in Ogoniland. The entire soil needs to be clean. The water on the surface needs to be clean. The water underground, because I have seen in other places like LMA where a borehole of up to 200 meters depth is contaminated with hydrocarbon. You need to free this water from this carcinogenous material that can lead to health issues. So the entire exercise is a cleaning exercise to free the entire environment from the hydrocarbon that have contaminated this area for the past 40 years.
Sir, still with you, you said that about 21 lots are ready for remediation. We can understand, the complex nature of this exercise and the level of technology required to get all this done. Many Nigerians are worried about, the delays. It's taking a while. When are we hoping that the action will begin?
I've just told you that we cannot go beyond this month because we cannot shift the goalpost. At the level we are, people have complained rightly, but I would say wrongly also. You must have to put everything in place. Like I said, when people said, we've not done this, I said, well, we must have to delineate. If you don't delineate, you won't be able to know the contour of soil. And it is after the delineation exercise that you will now be able to ask contractor to quantify. You have to do your in-house estimate also based on the delineation exercise. The content of soil, the amount of water, what is the depth of water that is contaminated? Is it only on the surface or has it gone down? And if it has gone down, how many meters? These are values that you have to get so that you can do your in-house estimate and then ask the contractors who have the competence to now bid and give you the values. It is based on this now, you are now going to look at the figures, analyze them, and see how realistic the submissions are before you can be able to come up with the most responsive, the least or the most responsive bidding. Then you can now go ahead to award and then ask the contractors to move to site.
All right, the engagement of the contractors would appear now to be a higher gear that has been engaged with regard to the cleanup exercise, because this is a very highly technical phase. But as part of the rollout plan for the cleanup, there were some immediate steps that were required to have been taken. For instance, the temporary supply of water to the residents of the heavily impacted areas, and a few other things. Where are we with regard to those temporary or immediate measures that were required to have been taken 2.5 years ago?
The issue of water is also ongoing because the advertisement has been done, the documents have been received, they have been analyzed, and they are also at the stage of being finally processed for the contract to be issued for the water exercise. Again, we have done a detailed study of getting to know the water projects that are ongoing. And what we did is to make sure that we don't operate in silo. We get information from activities of the NDDC, other organizations like the Ministry of Niger Delta, what they have done, in what place, and how far they have gone, whether the project is ongoing or abandoned. We gathered all this information so that it will give us a baseline information on what to do. And on our own part, I said, we've done the advertisement, we've collected the bid document, we're analyzing them, and definitely, as soon as these ones roll out, the water is the next line of action. They are working side by side, and the consultants have reached an advanced stage of the analysis of these water issues. We're concerned about the water issue because, like I said, I have practically gone to a place in LMA where we took water from a borehole, and you could think it is just in a bottle of kerosene. So it is a real serious problem that must be addressed.
All right, thank you. You know, one really wonders how the experience you had in LMA can be handled when 200 meters away and you're still getting contaminated water. Now, let's turn to Senator Abe, who is representing Rivers Southeast Senatorial District. We've listened to the Honorable Minister and what has been ruled out, you know, to effect the implementation of Ogoni cleanup. Now, what's your assessment of what the government has done so far?
Well, first of all, let me use this opportunity to commend the President and the federal government, the Ministry of Environment, the High Prep itself, and all those that have worked hard to see that we finally bring the Ogoni cleanup to see the light of day in the sense in which the local population can actually see something happening. It is important at this time that we remember the historical background to some of these issues. One would recollect the hanging of Ken Saro-Wiwa, the protest by the Ogonis, the thousands of Ogoni sons, daughters who were killed in the course of the Ogoni crisis, and the thousands of them who fled the area. Some of them ended up in the United States. A lot of them are still stranded in Cotonou as we speak. And we've been trying to see how we can work with the needed federal agencies to have them come back home. The important thing for us to remember at this time, that the purpose of this entire exercise is to lift these people from where they are to where Nigeria would like to see them be. And that has been the whole purpose of the exercise. The Federal Ministry of Environment and High Prep, they've done well in terms of getting us to where we are now. As we speak now, I know for fact that the $170-something million that is being talked about is actually in the Ogoni Trust Fund account. And in a country like this, that is no mean achievement. The real challenge we face at this time is with the implementation of the cleanup itself. How do we carry out the exercise in such a manner that it actually affects the lives of the people? To bring in quote and unquote technical companies from everywhere except the local people and award contracts will not, in my opinion, meet the expectations of the Ogoni people who are eagerly and expectantly waiting that this exercise will create opportunities, create jobs, and create an economic uplift for them in the process. So I'm not satisfied with the way the process was handled because I didn't see that local participation, local involvement, and trying to see that the companies present some, would I call it, maybe some memoranda as to exactly how their operations will impact the local community, who are their local partners, how is this thing going to affect the local people economically at the end of the day. I think that except we factor that into whatever we're doing, it's going to be another round of running around in circles because without effective local participation, you will not get the local support that you need in order to be able to effectively implement the project. So I would like to draw the minister's attention to that and see if there's a way he can explain to us if this was taken into consideration because I don't know any of the companies that are participating. I didn't involve myself in that because I had promised publicly, and I would like to repeat here that I would not derive any benefit whatsoever from the cleanup of Ogoni land, but I will vigilantly watch the process to see that the Ogoni people, after all these years of suffering, are not shortchanged in any way. And that is a principle that we must take into consideration moving forward.
All right. Senator Magnus Abba, of course, you are from the area, and so you know, as the saying goes, where the shoe pinches. But you've asked a question, and I think that the Honourable Minister should take that question. Who are these contractors, and what is the likely local input from amongst the Ogoni people and entities with regard to the cleanup, considering what Senator Abba has just indicated?
Well, actually, it would be ridiculous for me to say that I know all the contractors in this process. Like he doesn't know them, I don't know them also. It is their submissions that are put into question and analyzed by the technical people in the procurement processes. You must have to submit your detail about your personnel, your pedigree, the job you've done in the past, how far you've gone, the quantum of money you have expended, your financial models, and so on and so forth. These are the bases under which a company is assessed. And there is a law, the Procurement Act, that gives guidelines on how to assess anybody who has expressed an interest to do a job for the federal government or any other organization in this country. We go by that Procurement Act. And to talk of the local content, there is also the Executive Order 6, which talks about the local content for any contract that is below ₦1 billion. Nothing stops any company from engaging partners in or out of the country. And the bid document that I know was prepared has made adequate provisions for the involvement of local contents in these companies. We want the best because we know that in the history of oil pollution in this country, there is no job that is as huge as the Ogoni cleanup. Make no mistake, there are 4 local governments in Ogoni land out of the 774 in this country. These areas are severely impacted. You need real technical inputs to be able to take care of these situations. I don't think in the history of oil pollution we've done any project in this country that will be as big as what is going to happen in Ogoni land. Therefore, I'm not under any illusion that we may have complete technical competence in this country without having to get some people from outside this country that may have technical competence to partner with our Nigerian companies to be able to deliver the best that we want. We are for best practice, we are for standard international specifications, and those things are embedded in the technical details that has been prepared for this cleaning exercise. As far as I'm concerned, the distinguished senator may not be satisfied, but I'm confident and optimistic that we will be able to give the best under the constraint that we're having right now. Our best may not be good enough, we may not get the 100%, but I'm sure with what we put in place, we have the competence to derive from the companies that are there to bid for this and that have bidded. I am sure if the distinguished senator is given the privilege to look at the technical specifications with proper explanation, I'm sure he will be convinced that we put everything in place to make sure that the people in Ogoni land are properly addressed so that they will get best value and be able to be gainfully engaged. We're conscious of the fact that if the locals are not properly engaged, we may not be able to get the desired peace because there will still be agitations. For instance, we have to use the office of the National Security Advisor to ensure security. But we are conscious of the fact that deploying military personnel or police is not entirely the best option to get security. So we're talking with the locals. I know there are retired generals in Ogoni land. There are many of them that have security companies. So using them, but it has to be coordinated. And that's why the personnel deployed from the Office of the National Security Advisor have been instructed by the Office of the Minister of State for Environment to handle the issue of security in collaboration, active collaboration with the local security companies that are from Ogoniland. That way, you will get the advantage of getting people who know the terrain, who know the people, who can talk to the people, and who can ask them to stop here or go there, and therefore have a seamless operation. If that is followed religiously, in the first place, the advantage is that the companies will benefit materially. Secondly, they will engage their people who know the terrain and therefore are able to know the good, the bad, and the ugly in every location to be able to coordinate this effectively. We believe if this happens and is taken seriously by the locals, they are engaged, they will help us secure the operations. That's one aspect. For the companies, every bid document that is submitted, there is the local content. There is a certain percentage that you cannot do without having to involve the locals. We're not talking about picking a driver, picking a laborer, picking a cleaner, picking a messenger from Ogoni. No. There are highly qualified people, some of them with masters, some of them with PhD in environmental studies, environmental management, environmental engineering, environmental sciences. These are the type of skilled labor we are talking about that will have to be engaged by these companies that will end up doing this work. And I know also there are Ogoni contractors in this process. We've not stopped anybody from participating. But we have to also admit that at the beginning, some people are skeptical. So some did not bother to answer to the advertisement. There is nothing you can do about such people. But those who have the confidence and have gone through, definitely they will be considered. After these 21 lots, which may be rolled out hopefully by next week, there is another additional 20 lots that is being considered. And thirdly, there is the Tier 2 programs, that is looking at the level of contamination of water. This is another skilled job that needs consultants to study and give you the parameters under which you can now also award for the underground cleaning of the water that is contaminated. These are things that are put in place, and I want the distinguished senator to have that confidence. He has been involved in this process. He's been supportive. We've been working together in the last 2-3 years, and therefore I see him as a partner in progress, and we have been partnering together. And I think that partnership will continue to grow from strength to strength.
Yes, Honorable Minister. You know, Senator Abe is actually speaking for the people. It's part of his responsibility.
I am also speaking for the people because I'm working for the people.
Exactly, part of his responsibility as a senator representing them. And now I'm sure you will come to an agreeable terms with respect to this explanation you've given now. So Senator Abe, you know, he has raised a very important issue here, technical competence in terms of involving companies. Is a skill kind of exercise. I mean, someone has to have the skill to be able to operate in that environment, and of course the nature of what we're doing. For the first time in our history, we're embarking on such a huge clearing operation in a polluted area like Ogoniland. I hope you've taken some of this. So what's your comment on what he said?
Well, the Honorable Minister is a friend and a partner, but you also have to realize, like I said, that this is something you have to place in a historical context. I don't think that there is anything wrong with the government going out of its way to watch out for the interest of the people. If you treat this entirely as either a business undertaking or a government procurement process, we all know what will happen. The money will go, probably there will be work done on the place, but the people will remain the way they are. I think that having the understanding and the objective that at the end of this exercise, the Ogoni people who are it's called an Ogoni Trust Fund. It's called an Ogoni Trust Fund, and that is why it was set up. So it's not just a federal procurement process. This is a special kind of project that was put in place to compensate the people for what they had gone through in this country. It's part of the country's effort to clean its conscience in terms of how it related to these communities of people who had suffered so much in terms of trying to contribute to the wealth of this country. And it's not just in Ogoni. So how we deal with the Ogonis will give others confidence as to what can happen. I can give you several stories and instances of similar things that have happened in different parts of the world. You heard of the ExxonMobil spill and how much was even paid to the locals even before anybody started talking. You heard of the Florida spill and how much was paid to the locals for their livelihoods and all that even before the cleanup started. You heard of the efforts that were made, but we are not yet there because we have not placed ourselves on that level. Not that there is anything different between our laws and the laws of all these other countries as it relates to spills and all that. But the point I would like to make, and which I will emphasize and insist on, is that we cannot treat this project as just a federal procurement process. Yes, the need to have proper technical competence in order to be able to deliver on the expectations, not just of the locals, but of the international community in terms of what it's actually done, is important. But equally important is that we remember and we work towards the objective of seeing that the Ogoni people benefit from the Ogoni Trust Fund. There is just no other way of discussing that. And therefore, the minister, the ministry, and High Prep must put in place very special conditions and make special efforts to see that that is done in a manner that will reflect on the expectations of the people and even the international community. To hire drivers, consultants, or hire somebody with an MSc, how long is the project going to last? Even if they hire you with a PhD and you're given some big title in the office, and you work there for maybe 6 months or 1 year, depending on how long it takes to complete the project. At the end of the day, when they go, are you going to go back with the company to where they are? No. They'll tell you they were hired for this project. The project is over. You have to stand down. So everybody in that context will go back to ground zero. So at the end of the day, the special efforts that we make to see that this kind of impact is not what is left in the community is what I am talking about. And it must be something that we should be open about it and discuss it in a manner that shows that it is part of the thinking of the government, because that was the understanding that we all came forward with. So I would thank the minister for what he has said and for what he's doing, but I will still enjoin, employ, plead, and appeal to him and the entire team to go back and look at that aspect so that at the end of the day, when we are talking to our people, we have something concrete that will say to them that, listen, this is exactly what the government is planning. And at the end of the day, this is what will be left with you. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I'm wondering, distinguished Senator Magnus Abe, what the appropriate clauses are establishing the trust fund, because some of the issues that you have raised with regard to direct advantages for the beneficiary, who are the Ogoni people, ordinarily should be embedded in a clause, in a trust fund. But I also would like to, again, bring you back to the role of stakeholders. It's a term that is often used loosely. What is it that the Ogoni people themselves are contributing in terms of the framework for the implementation of the remediation restoration program? And in addition to that, what do you also expect of other entities, for instance, the state government and NDDC, of course, which is also in the area, and the Federal Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that I have said right from the beginning that ultimately the success or lack of it of this project and this program would lie with the people themselves. And there are several reasons why I say so. I've also often given an example of a situation where you bring a broom and something to clean up your sitting room, and then somebody stands behind you with a dustbin. As you clean, he is pouring the dirt right back. If that is the way you go about cleaning your house is never going to be clean. So educating the people, involving them, and bringing to them that knowledge and understanding of what the environment means to them and how important it is. Because whether you like it or not, the fact remains that as we speak now, there's a lot of artisanal refining going on in the area, which we have tried to educate the people to stop. And it's not just a question of educating them. There must be a carrot and stick approach. There must be clear sanctions so that we don't end up cleaning and then some greedy person looking for money is digging up the pipelines to pour oil back in the places that we have spent all these millions of dollars to clean. So in terms of contribution, the greatest contribution the Ogoni people themselves need to make is that they need to understand how important the environment is to them. And the fact that the current poverty in the area is related to the fact that the environment can no longer sustain life. So cleaning it up is a way of getting them out of their current condition. These things need to be explained to some people. It's just like our fathers could not understand the relationship between a mosquito and malaria. So you take all that energy to run after a mosquito, to kill a mosquito. They are laughing at you. What is that small insect doing to you that you pursue it like that? But they didn't understand that that small insect is the reason why they were dying of malaria. But immediately they understood that. Today they can use nets, they can fleet their houses. They stay away from the mosquito because they know it is dangerous to health. In the same vein, educating the Ogoni people to actually understand the importance of the environment to the sustenance of life in their own area is key and critical to what I think that we need to do to get their buy-in into the project. Secondly, the whole issue of security in the area is a challenge to not just the project itself, but to the whole essence of getting people to behave in ways that contribute to the success of the project. Because if we allow artisanal refiners and all sorts of criminals to operate in the area after we have agreed that this is what we are going to do, I think that at the end of the day, it will be just another Nigerian project in the sense that the money would have been spent, but lives will not change.
What do you expect of the state government?
The state government, I believe that the state government has a critical role to play in the success of this program. And part of the challenge we have is that I don't want the state government, because it is a PDP government, to look at the project as an APC project, because some of the conversation have been tilted in that direction. I was happy that the governor attended the flag-off and stated his commitment to the project. I believe that it is now time for us to put those commitments into practical uses and partner not just with HYPREP and the federal government, but even with the contractors and the people. Because at the end of the day, it is the state government that is actually on ground, you know, to be able to get the best value out of this program and process. So I would like to use this opportunity to appeal to the Rivers State government to come on board as a full partner. Whatever the benefits are, at the end of the day, it is for Rivers people, and Ogoni people are Rivers people.
Well, very pertinent points, you know, that you have made there. We would like to return to the Honorable Minister of State with respect to part of the question that Kingsley, you know, asked, and that has to do with synergy, some kind of synergy between the Ministry of Environment, HAPREP, NDDC, the government of River State, and of course the Ministry of Niger Delta. Is there any form of collaboration? Because from this conversation, we've seen that it's not just to clean up. There are other factors, therein. So what is the relationship between your ministry and all these other establishments?
Well, there is a synergy in place because we are conscious of the fact that it is not an issue that the Ministry of Environment can think of going alone. We cannot operate in a silo, and therefore, to that extent, we made sure that in all the structures that we put in place, these various interests are represented. For instance, the MD of the NDDC is a member of the Governing Council of Ogoni Trust Fund. The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs is a member of this council. The Minister of Petroleum Resources is a member of the council. The MD of NNPC is also in council and in the board of trustees. There is a representative of River State government. The Commissioner for Environment is also a member of this council. This is to ensure that all those who have a vested interest and can contribute to the activities of the success of this cleanup are fully in the picture and are participating and contributing their own quota to this. So when you have a representative as high as the Commissioner for Environment from River State, and you have the MD of NDDC who is constantly attending the council meeting, as well as the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, then you have a complete team that can help actualize. And remember at that opening statement, I did mention the fact that we collected information from these various organs, particularly on water issues, contracts that are ongoing or are still, to be able to have a complete database of the interventions done and how far they have gone. If it is something we can build on, we go ahead and build. If it is something we can put aside and move on to do another thing. For instance, I know there is a water project that was not working. I think it's in LMA. Why is it not working? Specifically, I think in Ogali. It was not working because there was no money to pay diesel for the generator. It's an irony. And people have lost that benefit. So we are trying to put all these things to ensure that we work together in synergy and to move the process forward. And back to what distinguished Senator said, I appreciate the fact that we must get these people involved. I know that if at the end of this cleaning exercise, which is supposed to go for a period of 5 years, and remember, the entire returning of the location to its original nature before the pollution will take approximately 25 to 30 years. So it's an ongoing process, and you cannot do this, remedy the soil, and then leave the people just the way they are. The idea is to get the people better off than when it was started. And you can only do that if they are fully involved and they derive a lot of benefits from the activities that is going to take place. That's why we have these livelihoods. There is training program for the women and the youth in different skills acquisitions. And it's being handled by UNIDO, assisting us to get these people, to train them, to do a lot of things. It's not everybody that will want to go back to the farm. But there are ladies who will want to do hairdressing salon. There are some who will want to do some fishing activities. There are some who may not even do the fish pond, but they will want to get involved in processing the fish, dry them, and sell them as processed. This will add value, and they will have some money to play around with. So this is something that is in a complete package, and that it will be done sequentially in such a way that at the end of the day, we want to leave these people better off than at the time we met them. And I will continue to urge the distinguished senator who has been a good partner, and then to plead, like he said, also with the state government to get more involved so that we can together move this process forward for the benefit of our people.
The cleanup is for a 5-year period.
Yes.
When did the countdown begin?
I think the countdown now will begin from the very time the contractors roll to the ground, and I think this November.
All right. Now, funding, it's always a challenge for us in some respects, particularly with regard to projects and programs. There's some money already in the kitty. But going forward, are we fully satisfied that indeed there will always be funding available for this cleanup exercise?
There is already a funding for the entire project this year. He has mentioned the figure, which I want to make a correction because yesterday I got an update from the Board of Trustees. We now have a total of what has been released by the oil companies and the joint ventures, a total of $180 million. This is the total amount of money that has been released so far by the joint ventures. And this is the first time in the history of this issue of oil pollution that we are getting these companies to be fully committed to their obligations. Remember, UNEP recommended an initial bill of $1 billion. And since the process will go for a period of 5 years, it means we splitted it into 5, meaning that there will be $200 million every year from the year we started, and we are starting 2018. So we've gotten 180. You may be wondering what is wrong, why not 200? Well, the IPREP Gazette has put it in such a way that apart from the oil company, there will be refineries also operating in this area that will also contribute to this trust fund. And their contribution now is about $20 million. We have gotten the 180 from all the oil companies. What is left now is for the refineries, and we've written to the presidency, and the president has directed the Petroleum Resource Ministry to handle that. And as soon as we get those figures, we'll let the world know about it. But for now, the figures we said earlier on was 177 is now corrected, and the last information I received yesterday that we have so far collected 180 million, and like the distinguished senator said, it's in the trust fund. So I do not think money will be the real issue. The real issue now is how to manage it and to ensure that we actually utilize it properly and get value for that money.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Minister of State Environment. Let's go back to Senator Abe. In your postulations a short while ago, you raised a very crucial point, and that's, that has to do with the locals, the Ogoni people themselves. What is their level of understanding of the dangers inherent in oil pollution? You have talked about artisanal refining, which is still ongoing, and other activities, human activities that also precipitate the oil spillage. There is bunkering and also pipeline vandalism and what have you. How do you intend to address this? Because it's not just to clean up Ogoni area, but what about the persistence of those activities that will also return oil spillage in the land?
Well, I think that some of these issues are national issues which ought to be handled nationally. The issue of pipeline vandalization in this country, all across the world today, there are technologies that exist that will make it virtually impossible for anybody to vandalize a pipeline. Secondly, I believe that a lot of the pipeline infrastructure that exists in the Niger Delta, particularly in Ogoni, are themselves a problem at this time, because the ones that were put there by Shell, even their own maintenance regimen for this infrastructure was not followed, possibly because of a crisis at the time and the fact that the locals made so much a deal of any presence of Shell anywhere in Ogoni land. So they were not able to come in to maintain these pipelines and then maybe update them, because some of these things were buried more than 30, 40 years ago. And the current level of knowledge and technology that is in place in other parts of the world have not been brought to bear on some of this infrastructure in Nigeria. And as you and I know, some of the reasons for that may not just be the fault of the oil companies, but also the Nigerian system, because ultimately, whatever the oil companies will spend on this would be charged back to the Nigerian treasury. So I think that the government itself and the oil companies need to make a conscious effort to take a look at the infrastructure, the level of security and technology that is being deployed to put an end to pipeline vandalization. That is one. Two is that I do not believe that there is anything going on in the country that the security agencies are not aware of or cannot bring an end to, particularly as it relates to pipeline vandalization. Because crude is not something that you can hide. It's not a gun. You need to make money from crude, from bunkering and all that. You need to carry it in massive quantities. You need tankers, you need barges, you need all sorts of big equipment to be able to get value out of bunkering and all of these activities. And if the security agencies are made to insist that some of these practices end, if people can't make money from bunkering, they won't bunker. If people can't make money from busting the pipelines and moving these products, they won't do it. And sometimes the pipelines themselves are so old, they bust on their own. And then these things are spilling, just like what happened in Abuja. And then the natives go there to try to harvest their own share of something. So I think that all these are issues that we need to take into very serious consideration as we go into the cleanup in Ogoni, because it's something that should run together so that the actual value is realized.
All right, you're on the ground in terms of being from the area and the state. We're talking earlier about the role of the state government. You applauded what the state government made as its commitment to the cleanup. But is it possible for us to conceive of specific areas in which the government might come in? I'm wondering now, because earlier you talked about environmental consciousness amongst the Ogoni people themselves, so that they appreciate what the environment means to them and what it means in the future, so that they don't have the analogy that you mentioned earlier of, you mopping up the floor and then somebody come back with a dustbin to begin to dirty the floor again. So, Honorable Minister, is there a specific role carved out, for instance, for some of these collaborative agencies? Yes.
I applauded what the government said.
Yes.
We are yet to applaud what the government is doing or has done.
Yes.
When they do something that is worth applauding, we will applaud. But in terms of what they have said as their commitment to the project, they have said something. But in terms of what I have seen the state government do, either in support of it or as an active partner, maybe the minister has that information. I don't have it. I haven't seen that.
Honorable Minister.
And that's why I said I was calling on the state government
That's right.
to now put their words into action. Let us begin to see that commitment.
Yes.
Well, I will probably have to toe the same line with distinguished Senator. We are hoping that there will be good partnership. This is the only thing I can say for now.
All right, thank you very much. Let's take our viewers' reactions that have come in by way of tweets. Abobola has this tweet. Now, the federal government needs to keep in touch with the people of the area. That's Ogoni land. The public perception is not favorable. The perception is that the leadership is only playing politics and that not much political will is being put into it. But like the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing does often engage the public.
Okay, see from Mobola Hon, if there's anything that is more than paramount to the need of the Niger Delta, it's this cleanup. Its execution will make life much more meaningful, open a lot of job opportunities for the dwellers in that region. Life is really unbearable for the underprivileged among them.
Iha Chuku has this tweet. It says, and it's by way of a question, are all stakeholders consulted?
All right, DKK Wikashi, he says, Honorable Minister, what is the plan on ground as regards the payment of hyper-pioneer staff salary and arrears over the past 5 years?
And Bala Mohammed Gaidam tweets, Ogoni cleanup is a life-saving project that ought to have been done much earlier. We thank God it's ongoing now.
Okay, from Ihan Ichuku, let the best brain be engaged to do the cleanup. We should not play politics with it.
And this is from Suleiman Babagana, and he tweets. He says the huge funds allocated for the cleanup should be judiciously utilized to achieve stability in the region.
Festus Akimbe, I cannot understand why it's taking eternity to clean up Ogoni. Nigerians are getting bored of this complex bureaucracy. Well, I thought you have also heard from the minister on how far they have gone in doing this. At this point, Kingsley, we would like to comment on the minister on this. Okay, Minister, can you come?
Well, there was a question. What happened to the all high prep staff? Well, there were some all high prep staff, about 130 or 50, I would say, who were engaged at the beginning before we took over. At that time, it was in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and we made a bill of over 6 billion naira to be settled by way of salaries and wages. We felt it wasn't realistic, and we took the issue to the Ministry of Labour, who did a committee and analyzed all the documents that were on ground, which we inherited, and finally, it was slashed realistically to about 17% of the original bill, meaning that we have to pay them about 1.something billion now. We've gotten approval from the presidency to pay that, and we are now calling on them to come forward for verification so that we can know exactly those who are there. We have the list, but we want to do a biometric to ensure that we don't get anybody out of the way of people who ought not to benefit are coming to benefit.
So when will it commence, the payment?
As soon as the biometric is completed.
All right, just one last comment from you. There are a number of agencies under your ministry. NESRA, NOSRA, they're all involved with environment and oil pollution. What is their simultaneous role in the cleanup exercise?
NOSRA is about oil spill detection and response as an agency. They are involved whenever there is a spill, they have to be notified, and they normally do a joint site inspection with the oil companies, the locals, to come up with a report and to be able to determine what led to the spill and then who to apportion blame and then take action to ensure that it is remediated. So they will also be involved in this cleaning exercise because they have the capacity to certify contractors and to ensure that what has been cleaned is certified to be clean. That will be at the end of every cleaning exercise that will take place. So NOSRA has that capacity to work in this direction. For NESRA, it is the National Environmental Enforcement and Regulation Agency. They are more involved all over the country as far as environmental standards are concerned. They are a compliance agency also, and they ensure that anything that has to do with environment is, but NOSRA is specifically targeting oil spills. So they are more relevant to this cleaning exercise than any other agency.
All right, Honorable Minister, I would like to thank you at this point. Honorable Minister of State Environment, Ibrahim Usman Jibril, we thank you for your contribution this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Nigeria. And Senator Magnus Abe, representing Rivers South East Senatorial District. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. This is Good Morning, Nigeria. When we return from this break, well, we'll take you on Voters Register. Stay with us.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dental Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back. Now, for 7 days, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, had carried out display of voters' register in compliance with the activities lined up for the 2019 general elections.
Now, the display of voters' register was meant to provide eligible voters the opportunity of cross-checking their particulars preparatory to next year's general elections.
But reports indicate that there was low turnout of eligible voters in some areas, while the contrary was the case in others.
All right, now here with us on the studios to discuss this issue further, we have Mr. Paul Ayeze. He's Deputy Director of Voter Registry of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Mr. Ayeze, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have with us here Dr. Mukhtar Imam, Mr. Department of International Relations and Diplomacy at Base University, based here in Abuja. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Kieran?
Yeah, gentlemen, it's good to have you this morning. Mr. Ayeze, let's begin with you. How has this exercise been so far?
Like you said, there was low turnout in some places, and we had good turnout in other places. The exercise basically was not just to display register for people to know where they will vote. It's also an opportunity given to Nigerians to pick up their PVCs. And it's also an opportunity for Nigerians to look at the register and tell us if there are people there that are not eligible to vote in Nigeria, and then we can clean them up. That was the basic essence of the exercise. On the PVC collection, I think that was a very successful one. But the problem is Nigerians are not ready to come up and say that, okay, this person is not supposed to be on this list. In some places that they actually mentioned, they will tell them to come for the claims. Because one thing is to make a claim. Another thing is to come for the hearing. Mm-hmm. The hearing was for 11th and 12th. When we told them, okay, come out for the claims, they did not come. And if you say somebody is diseased, we say, okay, give us an evidence to show this person is diseased. They will not respond. So that was the major issue. But by and large, I think we tried. We did our best.
Well, when you had the display of voters' register, what kind of response did you get from the critical stakeholders, namely political office seekers and, in particular, political parties?
I think I must confess, for the first time, I was impressed with the political parties. If you go on the social media, you see them telling Nigerians, go and check your status. And I think in Lagos, one of them had a ratio or something like that to let Nigerians know that it's important for them to check. I think the political parties tried this time around. Most of them are saying that is the first phase of checking rigging, and I think we like that. The airports really publicized the thing, and the press too did their best. When you turn on to radio stations, you see them telling Nigerians there's a opportunity for you to know where you will vote in February and in March, and I think the political parties tried this time around.
Now, this is a one-week program, or, that you have put in place. Yes. And knowing Nigerians, as we go about doing our things, there's low turnout at the moment.
Yes.
Now, what is the guarantee that within this 1 week, the people would have, turned up at the voting centers to really know whether they are eligible to vote or not?
Low turnout is relative. I think that what happened that people that have registered before, the over 69 million, they didn't bother to go and check. The target was 14 million. And you see, we displayed our polling units. And there is no polling unit that's supposed to have more than 500 people at a time, at the whole week anyway. So you see, I think people check. And you can check for your brother. You can check for yourself. I think people came out to check. And I don't know, were we expecting people to gather together like you want to register again? I think the turnout was good. I monitored in Delta State and Edo State. And I think the turnout was good. The only problem was people objecting to names on the register. They would just go say, this one is a disease, just okay, write RIP there. So this is something we want to take back to the commission and say, okay, can we work with just RIP? Because the rule says that there must be an evidence or something to show that the person is deceased.
Yeah, provided it's not a political opponent who's
writing RIP.
Who's writing RIP so that you disenfranchise all your
yes.
potential voters for your opponents. I'm wondering, just before we bring in Dr. Mukhtar Imam, when, therefore, should the electorate expect the cleaned-up voters register?
Okay. At the moment, we are taking back all the claims and all the objections and working on them. Hopefully, by December, we have a clean register for the election. Apart from the cleanup, on our side, too, there were complaints here and there. People saw there were errors here and there, and we are working on that. And then by December, everything should be ready. We'll go out again in December, January, to distribute the last phase of the cards. You know, what we have done is we distributed 2017 cards, and we have distributed 2018 first phase card, that January to March. So we have the cards from April to August 31st that we are working on. That, again, will call our Nigerians to come and pick up. And we'll go down close to Nigerians, add to the residence center or to the polling units.
Please just clarify that again, because there was the issue of continuous voter registration exercise. The deadline was for December, I'm sorry, that was August 31st.
31st.
Yeah, so for those who registered by August 31st, yes, the cards are not ready.
No, from April 2nd to August 31st, the cards are not ready.
When will they be ready?
They'll be ready by December.
Okay.
Again, we'll call our Nigerians to go and pick up
cards. Okay. Now, let's turn to Dr. Mukhtar Imam. What's your assessment of this exercise?
Well, by and large, from what I saw, I was not directly involved with the CSOs and IGOs or NGOs that were investigating or being spectators in the process. But I think from the reports, from the few reports I've read, from some IGOs and NGOs, and as a matter of fact, from individuals, I think INEC has done significantly well in this regard. The turnout, like he mentioned, was, I didn't expect to hear that the turnout was low, because it's not an overall registration process where you start all over again. With Nigerians, it's an attitudinal thing. You know, we have often seen this kind of trajectories over time, that whenever there is a registration or some kind of processes where people come for verification, people are always dragging their feet to get there, people are always laid back and all of that. So that definitely would have played out in some instances. But the reality is, speaking in general terms, I think Nigerians are becoming very, very conscious. That awakeness is beginning to come. Yes, for some people in the academia, it's not fast enough, but I feel we're making deliberate progress, and significantly, we have been able to, Nigerians are beginning to, you know, that whole docile attitude is no longer very visible in Nigerians as far as political participation is concerned. People are becoming more awakened, either by the influence of the social media or whatever reason. I wouldn't want to peg it to any particular rationale, but then people are becoming more involved. And we will see an exponential growth in participation in the general elections. That is what I foresee from the few investigations that I've been able to carry out.
Now, from what you explained, with respect to how the cards should be distributed, between now and December, shortly before the election, is it
well structured?
Well, no, I feel in that regard, yes, judging from what has happened, again, we go back to the trajectory, we will see that INEC is doing fairly well enough, but then there are lapses. I feel in this regard, more time needs to be created. I think things need to be done expeditiously to be able to allow a lot more segment of the population be involved in the voting process. INEC, from what INEC is doing, I feel INEC has significantly tried to enfranchise a lot of Nigerians, except for those who have refused deliberately. We've seen them. We've carried out experiments. You hear a lot of people tell you, there's no point. You hear a lot of people. So that political apathy, voter apathy is there. It's visible. But the truth is we need to have significant period of time so that we can basically create a more fertile ground for awareness, for sensitization, to be able to allow people to understand. Because it takes one thing for you to inform people about a certain process, and it takes another thing for you to inculcate the values in them. Our ability to educate them, to expose them to these things, to be able to convince them to come in. Because it's all a part of the resource distribution. You must educate people, enlighten them. You must find a way of, if you like, maneuvering to get them to come into the process, because it's very, very important.
Well, Mukhtar, there are still reports of some hundreds of thousands of uncollected PVCs. In various parts of the Federation. Yes. Does that worry you?
Of course, indeed it does. That's a major concern. I was going to go there. See, apart from displaying voter register and telling people to come in, or giving them the opportunity or privilege to come in and take their PVCs and all of that, there are concerns, which what you have just mentioned rightly is one of them. One of the worrying concern. It's a very, very imperative, germane concern. You see, the truth is, as far as the uncollected PVCs are concerned, one might be tempted to say it's the business of those Nigerians who have refused to come forward to collect them. But again, looking at it on the other side, governance is a collective responsibility. The reason why the reason why we are not all presidents, the reason why we are not all governors or ministers or INEC chairmen is because somebody somewhere has said, I can shoulder the responsibility of one, not just addressing the administrative challenges in the office, but being able to look at the sociological issues as well. And what are these issues? To be able to key into the psychoses of average Nigerians and tell them, look, you need to wake up to this realization. In this case, I feel all of us within the Nigerian context are partners. We are all stakeholders in the Nigerian project. So there's the need for all and sundry to come together to sensitize people. This is my focal point: voter education, political education. You see, the political socialization in our climb is at its ebb. I feel a lot needs to be done. This is where political parties, IGOs and NGOs and CSOs need to come in. We need to sensitize the people. An average woman selling tomato on the street will tell you it is not my business to go and collect a PVC. It is her business. And how you do that is by putting out that awareness, sensitizing people. This is where political parties need to do a lot. They need to gather their followership and sensitize them, give them voter education. What are the do's and don'ts within the electoral period? What are the things that people need to adhere to? These are a lot of... INEC is shouldering enormous responsibility. The political parties, the NGOs and CSOs... okay, the man is thanking me now.
I don't know why he's thanking you. Sorry, Mukhtar. Let him respond to this viewpoint that's also been expressed. Initially, the view was out there that INEC's system was such that could detect multiple registration. Yes. But there was also, it's been argued, the foolhardiness of some elements who believed that they could engage in multiple registration. And that part of what you are seeing now as the figures for uncollected PVCs may very well be of those multiple registration. What is your thought?
Okay. We have a system that detects multiple registration. It's called the AFIS. I'm sure you're already used to it, Automated Fingerprint Evidence System. Now, this is technology. It's not foolproof. You can, at times when you go to register, if you have ever been to where they're registering, you can finish your own registration now. Kerian will go there. You will now say that Kerian and you match. It will not ask, should I continue or should I say no? You know, so it's also a technological problem. And that is why we display this register. Come out there, help us look at this register. We have done our own part. Technology has done its own part. Look at this register. And that's the essence that we did that. Even in-house, we also do some other things to see where technology has been bypassed. So all these things are possible. It's fingerprints. And today we have over 16 million cards uncollected.
Okay. Now, and that's what will lead to the next question. Now, what is the immediate and long-term plan of INEC to ensure that these PVCs are collected? Is it by way of sensitization or what have you? Do you have anything, you know, on course to ensure that Nigerians pick up their PVCs?
Yeah, we have lots on course now. We already partnered with NCC. And NCC is taking as part of their social responsibility to now contact Nigerians. We've given NCC, we are giving NCC the phone numbers of the uncollected cards. They will now help us contact them via text message. You know, there's this DND now, do not disturb. We can't just send bulk text, but we believe that NCC can handle that. So NCC is already helping us on that. And on our part, we also we intend to photocopy these cards and paste it on at our local government. And if you identify somebody, then they can come. But as we speak, PVC collection is still ongoing, but at the local government offices.
All right. Well, we imagine that PVC collection will be ongoing until the eve of the election. Is that correct? Or is there a cutoff date?
Most likely a week to the election.
Most likely?
A week.
All right. That will be sometime early February.
Yes.
Okay. That's Deputy Director of Voter Registration at INEC, Mr. Paul Ayeze. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also would like to appreciate Dr. Muhtar Imam, is based University here in Abuja. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
for being on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go on out to our sports desk.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria stepped up their preparations ahead of Saturday's 29th qualifying fixture against